A young Peruvian bear is raised by his Aunt Lucy, and one day, when his aunt moves to a retirement home, he sets out to find a new home for himself. He loses his way in London, and a family takes him in. They name the station where they found him after him. Thus begins the adventure of Paddington Bear. In this 2014 animated film, the bear is voiced by the famous English actor Ben Whishaw, while the Turkish version is voiced by Eser Yenenler. Those watching the same film in Ukraine began to hear the words of this adorable bear voiced by Vladimir Zelensky, who was at the peak of his fame at the time. Tu kolisblo azars vi, sobachu ijo advertising gote. Haha. Music, ha. Haha, good. It is rare to find someone who can fit two lives into one lifetime, even children in Peru. Today know the voice behind Paddington Bear. Whether it's ironic or tragic, that the reason for this is a war you decide. However, it is certain that in the life trajectory of this Ukrainian actor, who even his opponents began to appreciate worldwide, within a week there are two contrasting lives. In Turkey, just like in the rest of the world, everyone who wondered who this man was rushed to search engines. The limited information about him quickly spread. They said he was a comedian. However, upon a little digging, it was seen that this comparison was insufficient. That tomorrow, perhaps even closer than tomorrow. Whether he wins or loses, he will remain in the spotlight for a longer time, just like today. In debate programs and social media posts, some declared the president of Ukraine as a servant of Zionism, a puppet of the oligarchs, a pawn of America, or an agent of NATO. But who is he really? It is not possible for someone who has been in politics for only 2.5 years to be all of these things at once. It's best to take a closer look at this man who has been sharing the top spot on the world agenda with Putin for some time. In his work, The Republic, which is considered the foundation of Platonic political theory, Plato positioned artists as the lowest class in his model of an ideal state structure. Although the reasons were different from Plato's, Zelensky was also underestimated when he was elected president at the beginning of 2019. All the bureaucrats and politicians he had to compete with, especially his counterparts, looked at him with disdain. After all, for many, politics was a serious business, while the show world was nothing but trickery. However, there were many examples proving that this was not the case. Ronald Reagan, the tough cowboy of the 50s, entered politics in the 60s and went down in history as the President of the United States in the 80s. The world owed the elimination of the nuclear war threat stemming from the Cold War as much to him as to Gorbachev. While Reagan was president, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the new star of cinema with the Terminator movie, was entering politics as the governor of California in the 2000s. Only actors? The world also witnessed writers taking on statesmanship and achieving extraordinary successes. For example, Victor Hugo influenced the world not only with his immortal novels, but also with his work in the parliament. He played a pioneering role not only in France, but also in the abolition of the death penalty in many countries, the enactment of laws against social injustice, and in Poland gaining its independence. Another example could be the Czech playwright Václav Havel, who changed the fate of his country. During his time, two countries, Czechia and Slovakia, were born. As for Zelensky, he entered politics as an actor, writer, and orator. Until the Ukraine-Russia war, he was a nobody to almost everyone outside these two countries. Now his name signifies many positive and negative things. The 44-year-old young leader, who was applauded after his speech at the European Parliament on March 1st, made an allegory between the square named The Freedom and the Russian missiles falling there. Regardless of the outcome of the war, it is already etched in memories. More than 20 universities are there. The youth there is bright and smart.
The people who gathered there all the time and were gathering there all the time to celebrate all celebrations on the largest square in our country, the Freedom Square. And this is the largest square in Europe, and that's true. This is called the Freedom Square. Can you imagine this morning 2 cruise missiles hit this Freedom Square? Dozens of people were killed. This is the price of freedom. We are fighting just for our land and for our freedom.
The memories of Zelensky's first life, whom we witness in his second life with an onion on his back, begin in Mongolia. When he was 5 years old, his father, a professor of cybernetics, was assigned there, and Zelensky, nicknamed Little Vova, attended primary school there. He says that today he has wonderful memories of those years, that he quickly picked up Mongolian and remembers the peony fields and tulips in the vast landscape. Upon returning to Ukraine, he witnessed the collapse of the Soviet Union. During his high school years, he learned that he was now a citizen of an independent Ukraine. Among his classmates, the one he got along with best was Denis Manjosov, and he started doing children's theater with him. Although we don't know for sure, it's probably not hard to guess that the reason he entered law school after finishing high school was due to parental pressure. Most likely that sentence, repeated millions of times in many homes around the world, must have been said to him as well. My child, get a diploma first, you can always do theater later. In those years, a television quiz show that had been running since the 1960s in Russia and its surroundings had become a phenomenon. The Club of the Funny, an inventive people, known simply as KVN, was an important program. The show's feature was that teams composed of university students would give instant funny answers to questions and compete with improvisational performances. The competition had gained the status of an international world championship organized in a league format. While part of the world was watching Dallas, the other part was hooked on KVN, and the phenomenon was already approaching its 40th year. The KVN team, founded by Zelensky and Manjosov, became champions in 1997 and gained great fame. The 95 quarter team had expanded beyond the program, becoming a brand and starting to participate in festivals. The last stop. Many star players, as well as vice presidents and intelligence agency directors, emerged from the members of that team, aside from today's president. However, while the most entertaining cabinet meetings in the world should normally be in Ukraine, it's hard to say that Zelensky has been smiling since he was elected president. What truly shaped his life before the presidency was the disbandment of his team in 2003. They rebelled against Mastyukov, the owner of the program format, thinking they were in an exploitative system. The first job offer to the two partners who established their own studio came from Channel 1+1. They were going to produce new entertainment programs, and Zelensky would direct. Meanwhile, another writer joined them, Elena Kioska, a peer whom Zelensky had known since high school. Despite being an architect, this beautiful woman who preferred to write sketches for television had captivated Zelensky's mind during their first meetings, but the young man didn't dare to open up for a long time. What brought them together was the movie Basic Instinct. When he said he really wanted to watch the tape Elena had, Zelensky managed to get her home phone number. Still, it wasn't easy for him to win her love. Our young lady was quite sought after and was one of the most eligible brides in Kryvyi Rih. Vladimir would need to outshine his many rivals with patience, politeness, humor, and intelligence. He used all the courting methods a man should, and after 8 years of being together, they finally got married in 2003. 5 years later, when Sasha was 5 years old, their child, named Kirill, was born. Undoubtedly, neither she nor anyone else could have predicted that she would become the First Lady 6 years after becoming a mother for the second time.
And now, join in on this song. The sound of work.
Zelensky's company produced The Matchmaker Show, which aired its first season in 2008. The program broke all rating records for 5 years and was sold to 10 countries, becoming the most successful production to come out of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the comedy and entertainment program called Evening Neighborhood, which he wrote and starred in, was very popular. His parodies, especially of famous politicians and artists from Ukraine and Russia, increased his fan base. Mr.
Trump.
Correct.
He has just gone somewhere.
Then. Nothing. This year either. Vladimir Zelensky and Mikhail Golostin.
He was a jury member on Laughing at the Comedian, a production similar to Got Talent, and then came the Laughter League, which was in a format similar to The Coffee, where he was first recognized. Zelensky was constantly working, continuously producing. Political satire received immediate feedback from the audience, but reactions were not delayed either.
This is the first quarterfinal. At this time, the theme was again that my team had reached the peak in 3 days.
Why they liked it.
Found it together.
What about after Dnipro? This is a very bad situation. Children? Now this is very hard.
Did that chick see it if I was drawing it? You'll hold this. If you eat the news, it's a traffic court cute country. Either you have started the ROPSI right now, or I guess I'm choosing the one that came out this month.
Ha! Ha! Because someone took us. Say, I am trying to forget this night. What a terrible end for you. Why do you remind me of this time?
On October 1st, the event will occur. Today. For years, citizens attach horizontal video content to Vurchuya, head cold, racism, Ismail Atik, and the children's words are banned. Mr. Mangruer, it was a swimsuit kufi for Steve China. The films Love in the Office and Against Napoleon, which he wrote and starred in, were heavily criticized by critics and did not succeed.
Especially those French from Vanna Park.
Shouting to Moscow. Look now, today.
And the dry President Blasnit. Not Napoleon.
Not forgetting Napoleon.
By the year 2014, he was still distant from politics. However, his creative shows for politicians continued. On one hand, he continued with television shows, and on the other, he supported the Euromaidan uprising that started in Freedom Square. The uprising erupted after the then President Yanukovych rejected the association agreement with the European Union, and the protesters accused their leader of being a secret hand of Russia. Showman Zelensky did not want to take sides in the conflict because his wife's family was from Moscow. Undoubtedly, he was also avoiding alienating his Russian fans. When the uprising could not be suppressed and got out of control, a ceasefire was declared. Yanukovych was removed from the presidency, the government was overthrown, and the president fled to Russia. Fate was weaving its webs. As the matchmaking show entered its 7th glorious season, tensions rose between Ukraine and Russia, and the annexation of Crimea came to the forefront. The Donbas War, which began on April 6, 2014, is essentially the core of the ongoing conflict. Along with Crimea, this was actually the other major event threatening Ukraine's integrity. After the change of control in Crimea, conflicts began in other cities with a high concentration of Russian descendants. The insurgents seized government buildings. People's republics were declared in Donetsk and Lugansk. Although the conflicts, which displaced over 1 million Ukrainians within the country and caused as many to flee abroad, did not concern the outside world much, they had already initiated a rupture in this part of the world. Now, looking back at 2014, we can see much more clearly that it was indeed a year of rupture. At that time, Western media claimed that the Novorossiya militias were supported by Russia and talked about volunteer militants going to war from other countries. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov criticized Ukraine for blaming Russia for every problem. His American counterpart, John Kerry, also claimed that the events were provoked by Russia. It was not expected that Turkey would accept the annexation of Crimea. President Erdogan openly stated that he did not accept Putin's approach to historical rights. Of course, among these major players, no one was even hearing Zelensky's voice in those years. However, he was now sure of one thing. He wanted the priority to be human life, the military operation in Donbass to stop, a ceasefire, and negotiations with the Kremlin. He opposed the ban on Russian artists entering Ukraine. He was making his voice heard again through political satire. Moreover, as Ukraine's Mr. Bean, he was also making English videos mocking the European Union. Hello, my congratulations. We decided to take your country to the European Union. Oh, fuck. I'm sorry. Wow, I am so happy. Yes, thank you very much, all the Ukrainians and all of our country. We've been waiting for this so much time. Ukrainian? Yes, Ukrainians. Oh, I'm so sorry, that's a mistake. I was calling to Montenegro. The following year, his new series, Servant of the People, premiered. The main character, an ordinary history teacher, accidentally becomes president and tries to make Ukraine a more livable country. The story depicted how the path to a bright future was hindered by a system corrupted with bribery. The show's slogan seemed like a prophecy, the story of the future president. This series would also mark the end of his first life and the beginning of his second life. I love my country. I love my wife. I love my dog. Should we call it the power of the artist? In his first life, he gained fame as a versatile artist, possessing many skills, each requiring years of work. The typical traits of Aquarius, such as kindness, egalitarianism, and innovation, defined his generally positive attitude towards life. His fan base, which grew with his quick-witted television roles, and the humor in his films, seemed willing to follow him, heeding the slogan, "Be my team." On January 1st, 2019, he announced that he would run for the presidency in the elections 3 months later. The name of his non-existent party had already been written on television screens in every home every week for years. The Servant of the People Party. Although he received more than twice the votes of his opponent, the incumbent President Poroshenko, in the first round, he did not surpass 50%. Before the second round, he agreed to debate his opponent in a stadium. On April 21st, all polls would indicate Zelensky's certain victory. Poroshenko congratulated the new president. without waiting for the official results. His first act was to request that his portrait not be hung in official projects. He told bureaucrats to hang pictures of your children. He was saying, when making a decision, look into their eyes well.
Correct. The right people, which will be servants of the people. And I really want in your offices, because the president is not an icon or an idol. The president is not a portrait. Put there photos of your children, and before every decision, division and fruit.
The servant of the People Party won the parliamentary elections and secured more than 43% of the votes. Let's take a closer look at what they have done in the last 2.5 years in office. Their most significant action was undoubtedly the course they set against the entrenched oligarchy. They began the purge by creating a registry of oligarchs in ministries and the media. They halted the broadcast of 3 television channels on the grounds that they were blocking sources of information. They restricted the commercial activities of media holdings. They initiated open healthy eating programs featuring world cuisines in schools. They established a platform for unconditional gender equality. They set up initiatives for digitalization and barrier-free living. They went to Donbass and initiated peace negotiations with Putin. They opened discussions on methods to return Crimea to Ukraine's jurisdiction. They sent the Ukrainian national team to Euro 2020 wearing jerseys that included Crimea as part of their country. They promoted the Ukrainian language against Russian influence. They included their language in the geophone translations of museums in many countries, including Turkey.
Good evening, everyone. The leader of the faction is here. The head of the president's office is here. Prime Minister Shmihal is here. Podolyak is here. The president is here. We are all here. Our achievements are here. The citizens of society are here. We are all here. We defend our independence and our state, and we will continue to do so. Glory to our defenders. Glory to our protectors. Glory to Ukraine. At the end of 2021, it announced its desire to join NATO and the European Union as Russian troops approached its borders. When Putin recognized the independence of Donetsk and Lugansk in February 2022 and initiated the military operation in Donbass, he stated that he was not an enemy of Russia. We have all lived through and are still experiencing what followed. Some blame without knowing who they are. Some already appear to admire without knowing who they are. Now anyone can compare him to whoever they want. In my opinion, he doesn't resemble anyone. Or we could say he does resemble someone.
To whom? Who? The sentences that start with "if only" by themselves are repeated multiple times. Those who feel the need to have the power to change things might resemble the person they want to be, thinking it shouldn't be like this. But what can I do?